Hi there. In this tutorial, we will see how can we create and validate HTML form dynamically. So, when we do that, we go through these steps. When we complete these steps one by one, our form will be fully dynamically created and validated. So, let's see how can we do that. For that, let's go to our code, create an input field, and value will be username. Let's create our state. Username, useState, initial value is 0. So when we create an input field, we must need a change handler unless we do provide the default value. We know that React has two types of value. One value, that value is called controlled value, and another value is called default value. It is also known as uncontrolled value. So we need to change this input value when we type something or our state changes. That means we need to handle a change handler to handle the control value. So I have to change and handler. Let's create this function. Username is equal to event.target.value. Now, if I save my file, I can see that actually it is still loading. I can see that my input appears. If I type something, that appears, but I need a submit handler. For that, let's create a button. Submit and add a click handler. Let's create the submit handler here. And console log the username. If I save my file, I can see my button. If I click this button, I can see my output appears in my console. But if I enter the keyboard, my output do not appears or submitted. So for that, instead of click handler, I need to add the submit handler. So let's create a form, and here move this click handler into form and change the click handler one click to one submit. If I save my file, this time if I enter this keyboard, I can see enter from my keyboard, I can see my text appears, but because the page reload, my console value dismiss. So we have to prevent the default load or refresh. So for that, when we have submit handler, we have another event called event, and I have to prevent this event event.prevent default. Now it will solve our prevent our page to reload. So if I type something, if I enter, I can see my output appears. So this is a single input. When we create an input field, we need a label. So let's create a label. And when we create label, to show the error message, we will create another text field so that we can show our errors. So a small error will be here as a username error. Let's create this variable in our top. Username error, set username error. So let's add error in our validation, that means in form. So if no username, then I have to set username error will be username failed is empty. If I save my file, if I click this button, I can see my error message appears. So let's see, we put this 3 field line by line, that means one after another in single row. So for that I have to wrap this syntax with a div element and add a style. So a style will be, I am using inline style, so it will be username style. Let's create this style in the bottom. Username style will be display will be flex, and flex direction will be column. If I save my file, I can see my input field appears line by line, but let's create a space between submit button and make this input field to red. So for that, margin bottom will be, for example, 18 pixel, 16 pixel, and the color style color will be red. If I save my file, I can see it shows appears. Now we do not want to show our error message always. We only want to show our error message when our error appears. That means it will be the user name error. If it has username error, then show this line. So if I save my file, I can see in the submit handler I have the error. If I remove or comment this line, when I submit, actually refresh the page, submit, I have no error message. But if I put something instead of string, so I say I put 0. If I do so, then we can see the 0 appears. The reason is that in JavaScript, 0 or empty or null is a boolean value, but in React this is not a boolean value. So for that I have to create this username to boolean. That means when it will be false value, convert this into boolean. If I save my file, I can see the error gone. So let's move into 0 to string initial value. Now if I enable this message, I can see my input field is showing this value. Let's see how can we, this is a hard coded value. So instead of hard coded, let's see how can we or when we type something, I am typing something and submit, my submitting handler shows, but the error message do not gone out. So for that I have to create same error message. That means set user error will be initial empty. If I save my file, if I click this button, I can see now my error is gone. If I remove the text and enter, my error appears. If I type again my name, I can see error is gone. This is the beginner way to handle the form. So let's see, we move, we create another field like this. We have one user field, username. This is a login form. So login form, we need at least 2 input field. One is a username, another is a password. So let's create another for password. Let's copy this line and change username to password, username to password. We do not created the password field, so let's create the state. Actually we need both to, one for handling value, another for showing the error. So password set password, and another one is the password error and set password error, actually capital set password error. So I created both file. Now change the password value, change the username. That means it will be another change handler, that it will be the password change handler. Now let's create this change handler. For that I have to password change handler evt, and similarly set password is equal to event.target.value. Now go to the last line. I need to change this username to password. That means when I have no password value, actually it will be not password error, it will be password, no username. When my username will be, actually no, it will be user error. That was right. So this one will be error. So when we have no error password or error value, then we do not show this message. It will only show when the error message comes. So password error. If I save my file, I can see I have two fields. Now I can see username and password. Actually password, let's create a type is equal to password. Type is equal to password, and it no need to type, but by default is a text, but let's create type text. If I save my file, now I can see that this works exactly our expectation. So if I remove this password field and try to click this submit button, actually this password not appears, because in input validation we do not handle the validation for our password. So let's click the set password error. Will be password field if empty, and another one it will be empty. So if I click this button, if actually no password set username value password. Okay, if I click this button, I can see my error appears. When I type something, my error gone. So this is the basic form to handle the submit button, to handle any HTML form. Let's see this, how can we modify this beginner code step by step, so that our code will be dynamically created and will be handled like a pro. So let's copy or create another file for them. Create another file. It will be login2.js, and I need to copy everything. I need to copy everything. So what's happened? Copy everything from here into login2. That means we do not want to change our first form, so that we can anytime check our form. So let's create form 2. So if I save my file, I can see still it is the same file. That means it is actually login to file. So let's modify this file. When we have only two option, I have at least 4 state value and repeated code like changeHandler same value. So let's see how can we update one by one. At first, let's remove our state value. Instead of multiple state value, create a single state value for them. Constant fields is equal to useState. This time, instead of single value, we will take an object. So one is the username and another one for the password. So where the username uses, we will replace with username with fields.username. So let's change at first username. Username will be fields.username. Another, it will be fields. It actually already an object, so no need to show them. And username fields.username, and where it comes username no use anymore. So let's change the password. So let's change the password. Password will be fields.password, and it will be fields.password. Our password is gone. Now let's change the set state value. So this set state value, instead of this value, it will be set fields. This is an object, so I have to copy our original value from the state. So fields, and the username will be the this username. So my input, this line is completely gone. Now create remove the set password method this way. So I have to copy this line, exactly this line, then move and change the username to password. As you can see, this is already a duplicate code. Just we need to change single property. So let's remove this password field, and if we save, actually it shows error. That means it will be not fields.error, actually fields.password. So if I save my file, I can see my submit form is still working as expected. Just we remove extra variable with a single object variable. So let's do the same thing with the password error messaging. So let's duplicate this line, and field will be error, fields error, and set field will be set fields error. Now when we have the username error, we will remove this username error, will be fields error dot username, and another one it will be the same. Let's see our code. Now my username field is gone. So let's do for the password. So go to the password, change the username with username, and it will be not username, it will be password. So let's move from here too. So if I go to my top, I can see username and password field is empty. Now let's do the with set username error. So if I go to the file, this one, so I have to copy same syntax from here, copy this line, it will be the username, and copy this line, it will be the password. So let's change username. The value will be this value, actually inside a code. Now this error message will be the remove this value with this error message. Now if we can remove this line, so it will be something like that, or we can add a block label so that it do not confused. Let's copy this line here and add a block label here, and it will be the password. So if I save my file, actually it is a lot of mess, so let's create in single line. If I save my file, if I click this button, I can see it actually my error message is gone, but it do not works. If I click this button, it shows that username field is empty. That means I am using wrong field. That means instead of fields, it will be set fields error. So it will be error. When we do this kind of copy paste or duplicate code, we will face this type of error a lot. So let's refresh the page. If I click this button, I can see my only one input field appears. That means if I comment out this line, now it will be only for this line. So when we validate our form this way, this technique will not work. So for that I have to create an object here, error object, empty object, and when our field is empty, then I have to create error.username will be empty this way, and let's copy this line, and it will be password, and it will also be the password. So after we modification, now we have to set fields error will be the error message. Now if I save my file, if I click this button, I can see my both error works. If I type something like my name, RIAJUL, if I click this button, I can see my error message is gone, but password is empty. So let's create the password. If I click this button, actually no need this one, we can see our password is gone. So let's simplify this error message in a single line. So this is the basic syntax for handling error. So let's move to the second step. Actually we do not need this 2-line code anymore. So we can see our changeHandler has the similar syntax. So let's update our changeHandler. So for that, let's go to the changeHandler. So instead of username changeHandler, we need only single changeHandler. So we no need username or something, just need changeHandler. Same thing goes to here, changeHandler. Now if I move to my changeHandler, no need duplicate one, let's delete them. Now it will be changeHandler. Now if I save my file, I can see it will work only for username. Let's type something. If I try to editing in my password field, it do not edit the password field, it actually edit the user field. The reason is that we handle both changeHandler with the same changeHandler. So we have to pass a value, changeHandler. We have to pass a value so that our changeHandler can identify that this changeHandler belong to username and this changeHandler is belong to password. So how can we do that? For that we can use this syntax. We can pass and now we can pass the username. This username, actually this username must be same as this field name. So I pass the username. I have to do the same thing here. So let's pass the username value as a password. Now if I go to my change handler, now we have instead of event handler we can have the password value. So now this time this event handler is no more exist because we pass only a single value. So we need to pass two things, one change handler to handle our event and another one for name. So I have to event and I have to pass change handler here. Event, first event will be change handler and second one will be the name. So I have to do the same thing here. So event, let's get the event from here. Event. Now my change handler has two variables. So in my change handler has two variables. First one is the event and second one is the user name or label. Let's say it is a name. So now my input value will be name. Name is equal to username target.value. That means when we try to change the value from the username, it will create username is equal to event target value, or when we try to update the value from the password, it will be the value will be the password then event.target.value. If I save my file, now if I type my name, I can see my name appears right. Now type something password. If I submit my button, do not need, I can see my form handler works fine. But this name process is a little bit messy. So this process, so instead of this process we will create a higher order function. So let's see how can we do that. For that we no need to pass this function, this event. We only need to pass the username. Actually lose the bracket. Now we have to do the same thing from this event handler. Remove the username or event. Now we pass the user function, but when we do that, it actually instead of passing a callback function, it directly invoke that function. So we have to create higher order function. That means we have to create another function, and now the name will be appear here. Now when we call this function in here, actually this function invoke this outer function and it return the inner function. This is the concept of higher order function. So if I save my file, I can see it works exactly as the before. So I do not need extra argument, modify or passing event always be available with my second argument. So this is the how can we solve our or update our change handler with a single change handler. It doesn't matter how many field we have. If we have multiple field, we do the same change handler. Just we need to create a single property, like this one is username, this one is password. So we can see how can we change handler. Now if I go to my text, we can see we already covered the second second step. Let's cover the third step. That means instead of duplicate code in JSX, we will use the list or loop to remove the duplication. That means now we have two text field or two input field. If I have 5 or 10 input field, then my user code or my JSX code will be actually a mess. So instead of that, let's create or let's see how can we solve with a single block. Let's create another file for that. Login actually 3.js. Let's copy from here everything with in JS and import 3. Now if I remove this line, if I save my file, I can see it is still the same. So we modify in this file. Instead of creating this multiple line, let's copy single block in my top, comment out this line so that we can see how we need, that means what variable we need. Let's create a input list items. It will be an array object. So first one will be the username, that means it will be name username. Now we need a label, so label will be capital username or whatever we offer. Then we need type, so I have to create another type. Will be, when we use username, it will be text. Now what we need changeHandler, clickHandler, we already do that. So we need the, actually is this 3. So let's create another one for my password. So password will be the password, and it will be the password, and it will be the password. That means this is not a text. When we use type, this value not is text, it is a keyword reserved with HTML. So we use this value instead of this one. Now remove this line. Now go to our code. Here let's create a loop. For that I have to create a list items dot map, and field or list will be this block. We only need single one, we no need extra. So remove this line or remove this block, or actually let's comment out so that later we can reuse again. Actually what I am doing, it says what is the wrong with my function. List items dot map and list, then I can this one. Now if I move the file, now my error is gone. Actually it loses one parenthesis, that is the error shows. Now this time I have the list, so in list I have username as a label, so it will be list dot label. Now for the text it will be list dot type will be type. That means when it will be username it will be text, when it will be the password it will be the password. The field value, let's change the field value little bit later. And now instead of password we cannot change pass value hard coded here. So my value is available in my name property, so it will be the list dot name. Now it will be same. What happened, it will be the same. So we cannot pass list here, so we can pass this way, this syntax, list dot name. Actually what was it was username. Okay, dot username. We have to change the here to, so username will be list dot name. Actually it is the name. Let's see what is the property name. Okay, now we change this here. Actually have to change here, it not username, it will be name. Now one more thing here, username, so it will be fields username, so it will be the list dot name. Now if I save my file, I can actually shows an error that it says in list component we always need to change a key property because it is a list, so I have to pass a key property. For that I have to pass the key is equal to list dot name, or name is the unique value because I use the name, I name for the different value, and we will use this name always unique value so that we can capture our field value. So I pass the username in our key value, so when I save this file, my error will be gone. If I this button, now I can see my field or my input field or form works exactly as before. That means validation working or everything works, so we no need this duplicate code anymore. So every time when we let's click compose in single line, now when we need any extra field, we just have to create a field. For example, password, confirm password. I have to type confirm password, and the type will be password, but label will be the confirm password, and I have to confirm password label here too. Let's put another here. That's it. We have to create a password field here and a password enter the value here, and if I save my file, I can see my another field appears. I do not enter add the validation, error validation for confirm password field. Let's say, or let's add a validation confirm field here, confirm password, it will works fine, it will works exactly. That means when we try to create our form this way dynamically, then it doesn't matter how long or how many my property are, we all be handled in a single changes. Actually I have changes 3 times. One is for my validation, let's remove this line. Another one is my field, and another one is the this one. Actually when we go to last step, we will see that we do not change these 3 steps. We will only change the single place, and all the field will be automatically created and validated. And why I remove the confirm password field? Because it is a logging field, logging component. So logging component we need only username and password, so that is the reason I remove the others. So we already covers the third field, that means remove the duplication in JSSX. Now in our fourth step, we will create custom components so that we can reduce our complexity even one step more further. For example, this is the input field, like this one, actually not this one, this one, it is input field. We have type, value, changeHandler, and we also will be need placeholder value will be the label, list dot label. this way. Now I can see my placeholder. We will need even more. Actually these two are mandatory, but type also require. Placeholder is optional but required, and another one is required field. So we need even more, for example for validation error. So we will do that in our later step, but let's modify our code even more. Like this way, I have list multiple place the same value. So let's remove the list. At first I have to get one is the name, another is the label, another one is the type. So I no need the list anymore. Remove the list. Now everything gone. That means my extra code is gone. Just remove the list and access those three property. If I save my file, it works exactly as before. I can see my validation, my output. Now we move this code into a single component. In our React application, in our earlier tutorial, we covers how can we create a component. Actually React is very popular for this component concept. So we do the same. For that, let's create a file. Inside my form, create a file. Actually this file should create in my component folder, so that those component we create by ourselves will be placed in the component folder. But for the project, for this testing project, I am creating the form here so that I do not need to worry about others. So for that, let's create input component, input.js, React functional component. It will be input. That means it is the custom input tag. Actually it renames the capital to single one. Now let's move the input field. That means inside this whole div, copy this div and put the div here, and remove this line and this line. Now we need this variable to pass by our component. That means when we call this input field here, input, it will be the input field from here. When we pass call this input field here, I have to pass all the value from here to, let's copy this, all the value here. Actually we need even more. Copy here to, at first let's go to here, actually it will be props and extract every component one by one. We need no need key here, so remove this line. We need a style, so let's copy our style from this component in our component. So our first style is solved. Now label, I have to pass the label from here. So label will be label default value will be empty string. So where is the label? This one is solved. Now I need a value. So for it I have a value. Value will be the string, object string. So this value will be the value. now I need change handler. So I have to actually let's rename the change handler to change on change. Actually, let's put the same name. We will modify later. Change handler, it will be the empty function default value. I am passing the default value so that if I miss this anyone, our code do not throw an error. So no need this extra stuff. So now I need type. So I need type default value will be text. This is a keyword. So default value type. Now I need a placeholder. So let's create a placeholder. Why placeholder do not throw error? Oh, actually placeholder use the label. That is the reason it do not throw. So let's put the placeholder. Initial value will be the empty string. So my label will be placeholder will be placeholder. Now require automatically require, or I can create this one optional too. So required, it is a boolean value. So let's put the default value to false. False. So my required will be required, and another one is the error handling. So it will be pass the error. That means in my let's copy all the property available. This must be passed from this component input field. So I need another one for error. So I have to pass another property for error. Actually, why this throw error? The reason is that remove this line comment. It will no more. It is a JSX element, so I have to wrap here this way. It is also remove this line. It is a JSX, so I have to pass this way. Now I need error. We need for error I need a boolean. That means default value is false. False. So my error, another property is error, and its default value will be false. So let's comma, and no need anymore here. Remove this portion, error, and here will be the helper text. That means it will be the comes from comes from here. Actually helper text. Let's create another component, helper text, not change handler. This will be our error message. That means here our error message was actually error message was this code. So I have to put this code in my this field. So this will be the error message. Now I have a error property. So helper text, helper text, initial value is string, it will be comma. Now it is the helper text. Now now I have to put the error message with the helper text. So my component is ready. No error appears. So I need to pass 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 property. Actually all are optional. So if I do not pass, our input field will work. So let's see. For example, open the text editor, copy. Actually I have to import this component at first. Actually I imported here. So if I save my file, I can see my input field appears. So now I have to pass all the required props. It do not throw error. The reason is that I make all the property as a optional. That is the reason it do not throw errors. So let's pass all the value. Now replace this line. Actually let's comment out, copy paste, comment out the second line so that we can compare this line. Actually full block, comment out this line. Now I have to put this input field. Now it will be this one. It throw an error because it creates multiple input inside a JSX. We know that in JSX we can return only one component at a time. Let's remove the error at first for simplicity. Now we can see our error gone. Now let's apply all the property here. So I have a label, so input label will be my label. Change this value will be label. Now I have a value will be my value will be my field.value. That means copy this line and replace this line. Now I have a change handler, so one change. But here my change handler name is change handler. Let's change the handler name same as on change handler. So for that I have to go to my component, replace the change handler with on change property. I have to remove here to on change. Now instead of change handler I have to use on change. So I need on change will be this function. So remove the on change handler with this one. Now type will be my type. Placeholder is the label. That means label. Now require, let's see require true. Error. Now we want to show error, so let's make it true. Text field message, that means my error message, this message, that means let's copy this code and pass the text here. Now I have everything. Let's check out one more time. Label, value, change handler, type, label, require, error, and the field error. Okay, everything worked. Okay, now remove this block completely. Let's see this function works exactly same way as this function. If I save my file, I can see actually show an error that list should have a unique key. I have forgot the same thing again. I have to add the key. Key is equal to name, because name is the unique. So if I save my file, if I refresh my page, I can actually this error appears for my Firefox. So it is not my React application error. So if I save my file, let's submit. Actually because the require method we need to do the require. If I comment out the require function, I can submit my value. But if we try to require field here, I must have passed something. So let's, for example, remove and comment out this require so that we can test our validation error. Now we can see that this custom component is a lot more simpler this messy component. Actually we do not apply any style here. When we apply any style, we will cover already the how can we style JSX in CSS, CSS in JSX by the style component. So when we do that, if I instead of, if I do not create custom component, then my component will be messy. So if we can put all the mess in a single file, and we can use as many times as we want, this way with custom component. So let's remove this line or this code, because we do not need this code anymore, and we do not need this style anymore. So remove this line. If I see my page, it is lot more simpler. Now we already done the fourth step. Let's create even more simpler. That means here is a duplicate code, here is a duplicate code, and this code comes from this method. So how can we handle or get this method for them? Let's create a constant temp object. It is an empty object, and list items dot map, actually not map, for each field, and I will temp object, not temp object dot, actually not dot, field will be empty array. So if I console log here, temp object, if I save my file, I can see my actually I have to temp object dot name. If I save my file, I can see I get the object that require for my this fields. So if I have multiple field, that will automatically handle by this function. So instead of this for field, I can have this temp object here. So temp object, or I can create object and copy the temp object this way. Now I can do the same thing for this function. So let's copy from here and paste here. Now I no need this extra code. So this temp object or this function, actually, if I save my file, refresh the page, I can see it works exactly as before. Now I do not need to change multiple times. Actually, for validation we need, let's add the validation here so that we can do not have manually. So let's create a validation, though we will cover our validation in another step or next step. So let's create a validation for that. For that I have to create loop field fields dot, actually this is a field object, so I have to convert this object dot keys. Now I can map through here, or for each I need field. Now what can I do? It will be error dot field if, actually let's check, if remove this line, if error dot field dot name, actually what value we pass the value, that means we have the name, that means error field dot name, if name is empty, that means no name, then error field, actually not field, field will be error.field will be the error message. That means the field, actually it will be the field is empty. Let's remove this 2 line and all the code will be handled automatically. Now we have the error message here and we pass the error message here. So my code is done. If I save my file, if I click this button, I can see my error works exactly. Now if I need another concept or another property, I just need to place changes in single place, like confirm password. Label will be the confirm password and type will be the password. So label will be the confirm password and I space the label. If I save my file, I can see everything works. If I submit my button, actually it shows do not shows. Let's update this line. Now we can see that every error happens or handles. We only change the username or change or create a field like this HTML tag, and all the field automatically handled or styled by our dynamically this method. So we no need this extra stuff. So now my code is a lot more simpler, but when here I could pass the hard-coded value like empty string, but if I have suppose it instead of this value username, suppose I have another value, it will be age, and we know that age value will be that number. So if I pass number, now what happens? Let's console log here. Console log the temp object. I can see my age value also converted to string because I convert here hard-coded string. So let's create a check. That means if field dot type is equal to number, because we know that the type value here, type value is not a regular text, it is a keyword for HTML. For example, it will be text, password, file, etc. etc. So we have to create this type of handle for every situation. So let's create input type is number, then temp object will be number, that means it will be 0. If it will be object, that means it will be file, then temp object will be file, that means a blob, or we can create new file this way. So in this tutorial we do not need type or 0 number. So let's remove this line, and this code is sufficient for our this code. Now remove the console log. So if I save my file, everything works fine. If I pass the actual value, I can see my output appears. Now we actually complete the 4th step. Now let's create a 5th step with the material UI, because in my tutorial I will use the material UI library for my styling. So let's create another file. Actually it is a login3. So create another file for login4.js. Copy everything from login3 to login4. Now I have to import the login4 in my app component. If I save my file, everything will be same. Remove the login3 and input field, because in this login field we already use the custom field we created, but Material UI already create this field for us. So let's import that field. For that I have to import Material UI. So comes here at first, text field. It will import the text field in my top. We can see text field appears. So instead of this syntax, I will use text field. So let's go my text field, and in text field we need all this property. So copy this property here and paste this, and if I go to, actually I need the loop, so let's copy this loop, and I need to copy this line too. So in Material UI we have a label, value, change handler, type, placeholder, and require everything, and also I add this property based on the Material UI property value, so it will work exactly as it original file. So if I save my file, it will render. Now I can see my two field appears here. Let's remove my custom field, or let's create our Material UI. Material UI has another property is called full width. Full width. If I save my file, I can see now it covers entire line. Now for label, I do not label, I added label, but label, actually label is the in Material UI, label will be the property name. Let's go to my Material UI. If I go to my text field, you can go to the Material UI official website, you can see, but in Material UI I already create some note for my purpose. So I have a variant, and another one is a margin. So let's add these two property. It will be variant will be content, actually forgot the value. Value will be standard outline field. Outline, let's pull the value outline. If I save my file, I can see my variant, that means my placeholder works, and also my outline do not works. The reason is that actually this is not the tutorial of Material UI, so I do not go to the Material UI text code. So let's remove my custom code, remove this custom code. Now if I save my, actually let's create, and again I forgot to enter the key prop. Key will be the name. Now if I save my file, it shows the error message. So if I type something, my error message appears here. Actually let's add a margin. So for that, margin will be, what is the margin? Margin will be dense. If I save my file, I can see it add a little bit margin. So this is the built-in Material UI property. So if you go to the Material UI website, mui.com, you will get the full documentation from here. MUI system, this is the all the details, so I do not go to this concept here. Now I have another step remaining, so that is the form validation. We actually do the form validation, but let's improve our validation little bit more. So I have the button. Actually, let's import the button from the material UI. Submit, 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 import button, and now variant is the outline. If I save my file, I can see beautiful button. Now for the validation, let's go to the validation part. At first, create the validation outside of my component. So go to here, function name will be the validate form. So I have to create this function here in my prevent handler, submit handler. So I have to validate form, and I have to pass the field property, fields property. That means this property, all the value available in my state value. So pass the field property here, and I must return true or false based on my validation works or error have or not. So I have to pass this, it will be there, and object boolean value. So I have to check if I have no error. That means if error found, it will return true. So I am saying that if return true or means return error, then return, else we have to console log this line. That means my output value only available when my validation function return false. That means when return false, it convert to true. So let's go to my move this code from here to my function. So let's move here. Now I have FILD fields, because I already passed the fields from my validation function. So I have the fields. So I need the set error function handler to update my state. So I also need to pass set fields error. It is a method, so I have this method available here, fields error. Now my error is gone. So move this line code here. Now I have to return true or false. That means if any error appears, that will be in my error object. So let's check in my error object. So for that, object dot values, actually I have to convert this object into array. For that I have to create keys, or I can create values. I have to pass the error object. Now it is an array, so I have each method or every method if field empty, that means if field no field, then it return true. If no field, then it will return true or false. So I no need this angle bracket, no need this line. So create this line and it will return true or false. Return. It's at first I convert my error object into an array, and now this array I access this array with every method. That means if every value, error value, every field value is empty, then it return true. False, if anyone has error, then it return false. So, and when it return true, that means no error found, then in the submit, then we go to this line, else we return from this line. If I save my file, if I refresh my page, I can submit my button. It do not shows error. Actually, I do not shows error in my validation. Error true. That means if I remove my error here, it will be. Let's put the error. Actually, at first let's check the error. So we can see the error because it's empty. That is the reason we do not access or succeed in this line. But if I have anything, oops, let's check out here. Go to return the or CLG, console log the fields error. Actually, what I am typing, console log error. If I save my file, I can see the error. What is the problem? Oops. Let's see what return from here. So constant return output return false. If I console log output, if I save my file, actually do not return any. Actually, let's the block the field, require field. So actually my problem is this line, not this line. It problem is validation. Actually this line. Let's comment out this line and what we see in error. If I click this button, because error appears, so I have to do tr no error appears. Let's comment out this line. Actually this it is a login form. Actually I am attaching this login form in my app component, login form 4. So I am in the login form 4 and what is the problem? Remove the console log validation form. Let's remove the if condition. Console log, can't comment this line. Actually I have field already. So if I save my file, my button do not works. That means my event handler do not works. That is the reason all the problem appears. Actually, let's uncomment my text field. So remove my start from the custom component. So I do not have all the mess. Copy from here and remove my. If I save my file, I can see my original code works. So let's remove test3. Now move the validation part. That means this portion. Create a if form validation form validate if no form validate function, we will create this function and pass the fields and the fields error. Let's create this function. If is, then return. That means error. If we face error, we do not proceed further. For that, let's create the form validate. I have two property. One is the fields and another is the set fields error. Now paste my code here and let's return the true or false value. Let's return the at first true. Let's see my output appears or not. If I click this button, I can see my output appears. If I return false, my output will not appear. That's mean it working. Now instead of this value, I have to return configure accordingly. That means I have to create object. There is a object dot values, pass the error message. Error message, it return an array. So check the array by every command. Every value is equal to empty. Is every value is equal to empty? Actually not empty hobe. Is every value is empty, then pass return true. Actually return. Remove this line. Is every field inside my error value is empty, then return true, else return false. So if I save my file, if I click this button, I can see my error appears. Let's uncomment line. I can see my error. If I pass my value, it actually is still not returning anything. Actually the problem is here that I name, when I convert our field to an array, our field is an key. This is an key, so it will be not name, it will be fields dot field. If I save my file, if I click this button, I can see my error. If I fill this error, I can see my display or my validation works. So this is a complex. I made little bit mistake. So now we can see how can we create or convert our HTML form dynamically and create, validate, and validate. So we face another problem when we create the custom component with Java with Material UI, but we will talk about how can we solve this problem in our later tutorial. But for now, let's move to our another topic.